Good morning, Merle Goldstein here. Today I wanted to talk for a few minutes about the concepts of being an object versus being a subject. And this also overlaps a little bit with the concepts of being in an active versus a passive position. So when we feel ourselves to be an object, it means that something is being done to us or we're on the receiving end of something happening to us from someone else or something outside ourselves. That's what it means to be an object. Something is being done to us, and we're on the receiving end of that action. So somebody may be hurting our feelings or controlling us or telling us what to do or loving us. Could be positive, could be negative. But when we feel like something is happening to us, usually outside of our control, that's when we're in the object position. Feeling ourselves to be in a subjective position or a subject means that we feel that we have agency. We have an ability to make something happen, to take initiative, to be in charge of our lives or ourselves, or we may be doing something to somebody else, positive or negative. Most people prefer to feel themselves to be a subject, an active agent, someone who is in control, making things happen to them in their lives. And the perception of being able to have a sense of effectiveness, right? That we can make something happen, we can do something, we can show initiative, we can express what's inside of us. That usually feels better and usually feels more in our control than being in the objective position. Now, the overlapping concepts with this are active and passive. So when we're in an active position, we're in a subjective initiative taking position where we're acting on our world, we're doing something, we're making something happen, we feel in control. When we're in a passive position, we're receiving. Something is happening to us or being done to us, and we're on the receiving end of it. So most people prefer to be in an active position than a passive one, or in a subjective position rather than an objective one, except in certain situations, right? If we are receiving, if we're on the receiving end of something loving or kind, safe, if we trust someone and we trust them to take care of us, then it could be a good feeling to have someone do something to us or be in control of us, and then we surrender ourselves to them or to it. It could be religion, it could be other things that we surrender ourselves to, and that could be a good feeling, even though it's more passive and it's not in our control because we feel trusting and safe, it could actually feel like a relief in a way to be able to give ourselves over to something and not have to be doing something or making something happen or controlling. That could feel nice some of the time, but that the conditions for that to feel good have to be, set up properly. We have to trust the other person or the thing that's happening to us. It has to feel good. It has to be something wanted. In a way, it's almost like we have to subjectively choose to be in the objective or passive position, and then it could feel good. But a lot of times, those conditions are not there, and it doesn't feel safe to surrender in that way or to give up control in that way. And we rather feel ourselves to be in control or in a more active position than a passive one. So there's a couple ways this plays out that I wanted to talk about today that has to do more with therapy or how we live our lives. One is that people have had a lot of trauma or have been controlled a lot and haven't had a lot of active initiative. May they may sometimes, we call it turning passive to active. They may actually take control over a trauma and almost like unconsciously repeat the trauma or recreate it or get drawn to situations where it's being repeated over and over again. So let's say somebody grew up with a very critical father, they may find people in their life to criticize them, or they may act in ways that evoke criticism from others. And this is a way that they start to feel like what happened to them out of their control, the criticism growing up, is now under their control. It's an unconscious defense mechanism so that we don't have to feel like things happened to us that were out of our control, that were negative. And now we start to feel like, oh, it was me who made it happen. And there's something that people find helpful about that, but not helpful at the same time, right? I mean, no one really wants their traumas to get recreated or to keep happening over and over again. But unconsciously, the grief or the resignation of accepting that things happened to us in the past that are now over, but that felt very much out of our control and were very painful, given grieving that, right? And accepting that we really had no control over it and we don't have control over it now is very hard for people, although that is part of the healing. And so people will a lot of times unconsciously recreate or turn things that they were in the passive position in the past into something that they now actively create. But there's another interesting thing that happens for people, and what happens is that sometimes people get stuck feeling that things in their life are happening to them passively, and they don't feel like an active agent in their life. They feel almost like a grievance, like things keep happening that they don't like, and they have no control over it. And it's almost like they're in this constant like protest or temper tantrum about it, right? It's like not fair. I don't want this. It's happening to me. I have no control over it. And people get stuck seeing themselves as not having any control. When we help people turn that feeling of not having any control into a feeling of focusing on or turning their attention to things where they have more control, not to repeat a trauma or not to recreate something that they had no control over in the past, but moving their attention to things that they have control over, right? It's kind of moving out of that feeling of being a victim or being passive, right? And moving into a feeling of, no, I have a lot of agency in my life. I choose the things I do. I can choose to help other people. I can choose to help other people heal from their experiences. I can choose to be kind. I can choose to do things that are meaningful to me. I can choose to engage in hobbies that I enjoy, right? We want to help people in a way in therapy to reclaim a sense of agency, but a healthy sense of agency, not where someone is repeating something painful, but where they're actually able to accept that something painful happened and there's a lot of things they don't have control over. And there may be a sense of pain and grief about that, but there are also many things the person does have control over and control over positive things that they could be doing with their own initiative that could help them reclaim a sense of agency, but a healthy sense of agency that's not trauma based. It's not based on having been controlled in the past. It's really based on a mindset shift of moving your attention away from being stuck on old things in the past that you want to, in a way, get compensated for or have somebody undo for you in a certain way, right? These are all coping mechanisms that we have to heal from things where we really felt that we were very passive and didn't have control over painful things that happen. And we hold on to this almost fantasy or belief to cope, right? That one day something will happen or someone will come along or somehow we'll make it be different. And we keep wanting to reverse the trauma, but that keeps us focused on the trauma or focused on the places where we were passive. Whereas there may be many places in our life in the present where we have a sense of agency in a healthy way, where there are positive things we could be doing, there are things we have control over, there are people in our lives that are supportive. And when we move our attention away from the past and our grievances and the things that we wish could be different, and we just let them move to the background and we grieve the things that have happened, but we also accept that they're over now, right? And that there are many things we have control over. Then we're able to move. It's very hard to do it. People don't want to give up this fantasy or belief that like they could sort of change history or get um, compensated for the pain they went through, right? But if we are able to help people do that, then they can move into a sense of positive agency where they're actually focused on things in their life that they have control over and they're able to be active about, but in a healthy way to do positive things and focus on things that they have control over and make a life for themselves that they feel happy with, that isn't organized around being in an active versus a passive position or having to repeat something from the past or undo something from the past, but is about newness and change in the present, being able to create something with the tools you have right now that you feel good about and feel proud of and happy with, and letting things that are over really be over, being able to move a little bit into a more of a sense of healthy initiative and a healthy sense of self in a positive, healthy way that's not based on trying to reorganize something from the past.